What up, you weirdos? Dave here, and I like knife safety. Recently, in a video, the one where I reviewed the Craftsman 12-in-1 OTF, I believe, I got called out because I was vigorously stroking the blade to show what crap it was, and friend of the show, Swiss Army knife enthusiast, and guy that I like to imagine being named Steve, hobby on YouTube, called me out and basically was like, hey man, don't do that. So I would like to just make a quick, I don't know how long this will be, PSA on basic knife safety, because it's something that I don't practice, certainly not on this channel, but my desire is for you to be better than I am, to be smarter, to be safer, whatever. I have a list here of lessons that I have lessons that I have been taught, let's say that, over the years, and with these particular knives. So, set that aside. First off, and these are in no particular order, I'm going to skip around. These are just the thoughts that I jotted down. First off, I'm going to go with no back cuts. Now, this sucker is really cheap, really crap blade, and there's going to be a lot of personal stories involved in this. When I was a very small child, I was out back in my garage making a spear with a big stick. And I had a lot of shavings there on the top, and I wanted to get rid of them. So I started coming back on them, and with one tremendous whack, went straight through my thumb to the bone. It squirted. It was nasty. It was nasty. I heard crunching. There was a line straight down my thumbnail. Pretty sure the scar is still there. So the lesson that I learned there, no back cuts. It ties in with this bottom one here. Keep hand free of follow through. That's something that my Buck 110 caught me right there on that little black line there when I was cutting up an apple for breakfast. The blade slipped and went straight through my finger. Keep your hand free of where the blade is going, because two objects cannot occupy the same space, and a knife blade, no matter how crap it is sharper than your finger. So always be aware of where your hand is in relation to the blade trajectory. And always make sure, because the blade, it's entirely possible for it to skip and stuff, so keep it well away from wherever the blade is going, because the knife has right of way and your flesh is soft. So keep your hand free of follow through, no back cuts. Keep knives sharp. That's tying back in with this big sucker here. It's a pretty crap blade. It was very dull at the time. I didn't know that because I was a very small child. And part of the reason that it skipped was because it was so dull. A sharp knife is safer than a dull one. That sounds weird, but I know it to be true. The Buck 110, when it went through my finger, this black line here barely bled at all, because the knife is so sharp that it very, very clean laceration. I was able to quickly bandage it, barely any blood. A dull knife will tear at your flesh. The difference between a regular bullet and a hollow point. A sharp blade will slice through, a dull knife will tear. One of those heals a lot easier than the other. So whatever knife that you're using, make sure that it is sharp, both because it makes it more useful for whatever you're cutting through, and safer in case you end up cutting through yourself. Thank you. This is something that they stress in Boy Scouts. I wasn't in it very long, but I was in it long enough to be taught that whenever you are handing someone a knife, you do not let go of it until they grab it, look you in the eye, and say, thank you. Then you let go, and they can have it. That's just to make sure that it is understood that the knife is being handed off. That has happened to me before. I was in a camp once handing a blade to a buddy of mine. He just threw out a quick thank you and turned away from me and started walking before he had actually grabbed it. So I let go of it, and it got very close to going through my foot. Luckily, the blade just landed in the ground. But always, when you are handing someone a knife, especially if it's open, even if it's closed, because an assisted open knife, that thing can pop open easy. But especially if it's open, make sure that the communication is there, that the other person is in full possession of the blade, in full control, before you release control. Because a knife is something that there must be control over, or, I mean, loose knives aren't fun for anybody, especially if they go through your foot. Never hand someone an unfamiliar design. It wasn't with this knife, but with another lockback that I couldn't find in the 3 minutes worth of effort that I put into these videos. I was using a knife. I handed it to a buddy of mine. He finished using it and then couldn't figure out how a backlock works. He had never seen it before. So he was just trying to press on it and ended up cutting one of his fingers because he had grabbed the blade. So always make sure that whoever you are handing your knife to, that they are familiar with how it works. And if they aren't, watch them, just take the blade from them and then show them how to close it. It's possible that you're in a situation you don't want to embarrass the other person by taking the knife. It's a knife. If you are their friend, you value the continued existence of their fingers. There's no shame in just showing them how to close it. Never hand someone an unfamiliar design. Show them how it works first. Don't trust someone. I've meant to look this guy up. I think it's Fun with Knives. I don't know. He has a video. There is a video, Knives You Don't Hand to People. Go watch that. It's better than this. Where he goes through, like, say this knife, for instance. Yes, you would hand this to somebody easy peasy because it's just a very simple design. An assisted open knife, you would open for them and then hand it to them so they know how it works. But he had a butterfly knife and a Paragon Warlock, I think. And those are just such unique designs that you cannot trust anyone that you don't know for a fact understands it. Never hand those to somebody. So just be aware that whoever you're working with, be aware of where their comfort level is. Closed blade during travel. Coming back to this, I carried this for a short stint while I was working with the HVAC systems. So I had this open. Excuse me. Ow. This is just a very cheap Winchester that I got from a pawn shop, and I had this open in my hand and went to climb a ladder. And this blade, this lock is such crap. I have two of these. I think this is the newer one, so it might not do it. But my older one, the lock is such crap that it actually closes. This one won't do it. That as I was climbing the ladder, I accidentally hit the blade on the bottom of one of the legs, and it closed directly on my finger. Left me with a nasty cut right on the knuckle. So whenever a blade is not explicitly directly in use, close it. When you are done with it, clean it, close it. Don't leave it open. Don't walk around with it open, because that's how people, specifically you, get hurt. So I should have closed it, then climbed up the ladder, then opened it again, instead of being a lazy punk, and I got punished for that. I got punished for being a lazy punk. I think that's that scar right there. To familiarize yourself before use. Whenever you get a new knife, Don't just immediately slap that in your pocket and go to work. When you take it out of the box, play with it for a few minutes. Make sure that you understand how it works before you trust your life to it, your efficiency to it, your job to it, whatever. Make sure that you yourself understand the blade that you are using, that you understand how to open and close, and all of that fun stuff. Watch fingertips. This is something that I struggled with greatly as a very small child. I had a tendency. I should have gotten out my M16, because I actually talked about this very issue in that review. The Cricket? I think it's the Cricket M16. Anyway, as a small child, I had a tendency to close the blade right there, and it would invariably get caught on my finger right there. This is the blade that I got for myself for my 18th birthday. It was the first legal knife that I had ever bought. And I kid you not, the very first time that I opened it, when I went to close it, sliced off the tip of my finger right there. Might still have a scar from that. So just always be aware of where your fingers are when you're closing a blade. This is a SOG Traction. It's a knife that I just got. I'm a bit of a fan. My biggest problem with it, though, is that it closes on you. And I actually have that red line right there. That's just from that simple motion. It's done that to me a handful of times now. Be aware of where your fingers are in relation to the blade when it's closing. Because again, it has right of way and you are soft. Never stroke a blade. If my camera was any kind of quality, you would be able to see the interstate road map of little tiny lacerations, scars, and scratches crisscrossing all of my fingertips. Because, as Hobby pointed out in this video, I was stroking the blade like a moron. So don't do that. I set a bad example. I'm aware of that. I don't care. Do as I say, not as I do. And just be aware of where your fingers are. Oh, and the watch your fingertips thing, that also applies to the SOG Flash. It's so difficult to close that I legitimately cut off about half of my finger right there. So respect a blade. It is sharp. If you don't respect it, it won't respect you. A man's relationship with a knife is very much a mutual one. This is a tool, but one that is, even a bad one, is still good at its job. I hope that makes sense. Respect a blade, it'll respect you. Don't respect a blade, it will punish you. Alright? These are seemingly inanimate objects, but I've seen them take on a life of their own and seek you out to punish you. I've seen it happen. Don't let it happen to you. Take care of these. Be aware of what is going on when you are handling them. Always have a first aid kit near. This is where this ties in. I have a boo-boo kit and a little bit of a heavier kit in my bag on me at all times. I have a little strap so that it's easy to pull out. Just off camera to this side, I have a little vial of new skin, so that whenever I cut myself, I can very quickly apply this. Just off camera to this side, I have a little vial of super glue. This is not suggested for medical use because it does chemically bond your flesh together. So if you end up needing to go to the emergency room for something, they have to recut your skin open. That's nasty. It's possible for super glue to, over time and repeated use, end up killing off the nerves in your fingertips, but mine are Mine are pretty much shot anyway. So it's not suggested, but it is excellent for that. So if you do intend to carry around super glue and you're putting it in your first aid kits and you intend to use it for medical use, I don't do this, but please, I want you to do this. Make sure that your super glue is safe for human skin. Super glue comes in a dozen different varieties with different chemical compounds, and some of them are safer for your flesh than others. Please find out what those are and use those, not just the cheap stuff that you got from Harbor Freight. Just off camera to this side, I have a handful of first aid kits that I've made myself and a whole mountain of electrical tape. So any boo-boo that I have in my life, I can very quickly take care of it, paint some new skin on it. If that doesn't work, super glue it. If I can't get that to come out right, put a quick Band-Aid on it, and then electrical tape that. So always, and I have a couple of Band-Aids in my wallet because I have a tendency to cut myself, and I know that. So always have a first aid kit near. Always be prepared to stop bleeding. Just always have Band-Aids near. When I was small enough for this thing to still be able to bite me, I used to look at Band-Aids as a sissy's tool. Real men don't use Band-Aids. That's garbage. That's stupid. I was an idiot child. Don't be as dumb as me and just carry Band-Aids. It's not difficult. Carry electrical tape. It's not difficult. Especially if you carry a knife, carry a Band-Aid. There's a particular gun-based YouTuber that I like to watch. I can't remember what his name is. And I don't much care for guns, but something that he once said stuck out to me. All gun owners should have medical training. Because if you are prepared to put a hole in someone, you should be equally prepared to patch a hole in someone. And I believe the exact same is true of knives. Make your own first aid kit if you want to, and carry it. It's not difficult. All the ones that I carry I've made myself. Be prepared. Be prepared to patch somebody up. I don't have any kind of medical training, formal or informal, but I do carry the very basic tools. Please also do that. Knives are not toys. That's what I want to leave you on. Knives are not toys. I often make reference to me playing with these while I'm driving, me playing with them in general. And while that's true, that is absolutely, that I condemn that as stupidity. Don't be as stupid as me. Knives are not toys. These are built for your enjoyment. They're not built for your amusement. So if you stroke them, if you put your finger near the blade, they will bite you. That is the purpose of their existence. I have a saying that any dog worth having will bite you at some point. My skin is also very much scarred from dogs scratching me and biting me while I'm playing with them. And that's fine. If a dog's not big enough to hurt you, ain't a dog worth having. I believe the exact same is true of knives. Any knife worth having, it'll bite you at some point. But do not tempt it. Never taunt a knife. They're not toys, they're tools. So if you respect a blade, it will respect you. But again, be prepared for those times where something is going to go wrong, because something will always go wrong. And just please be prepared to stop that. I'm not sure that I have anything more to say on this. I hope that this helps you be more cognizant of the way that you use your knives. I hope that this makes you more cognizant of just general safety in general. Vigilant, as far as self-defense, vigilance is the first step, is your first weapon. The same is true of general usage of knives. Being aware of what is going on is your first step to keeping yourself safe. So never let your mind wander while you have a sharp object in your hand. That's what I want to leave you on. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please list them below. If you have any fun stories about knives that have bitten you, list them below, because I love hearing about that. The sight of my own blood, I have terrible nosebleeds, so the sight of blood has never bothered me. Talking about it has never bothered me, so I want to hear your stories. Please tell me about them below. And other than that, have a great and safe